Hey parents and coaches, are your kids using the right glove? The most important skill for youth athletes to learn is how to play proper catch. The problem is, most youth gloves are made with bad leather and are too big for small hands. They actually make it harder to play catch. That's why former Major League Baseball shortstop Kevin Smith created Cali gloves. Cali gloves are crafted from 100% Japanese kip leather and are the perfect size for kids. All Cali gloves come with palm slits, finger loops, and elastic wrist lacing that encourage proper hand placement, the right closing patterns, and give kids more confidence to go make plays. Cali gloves even allow parents to break in the glove without stretching out the fit. It's the glove Kevin wishes he had growing up, and the glove all his teammates want for their kids. Visit caligloves.com to learn more and help your kids play better catch. That's Cali Gloves, K-A-L-I gloves.com.
Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host, Keith Glasser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Want to briefly cover, we had this question come up recently and figured it was worth taking a few minutes to kind of talk about, but kind of go over the Redshirt Rules. I know you had done a in-person seminar, and one of the questions basically stemmed around, do redshirts count against rosters? And how it kind of previously worked was if you were a non-scholarship guy and you were a redshirt, you didn't count against the 40-man. But the new rules, anybody who practices or competes, so that includes redshirts, count against your 34. Surprisingly, this was a little bit tough to dig up, and I think there was some speculation on it with some of the new roster changes and some of the DSA stuff is a little bit confusing, the designated student athletes, which that's something that maybe we can cover on a future date, but verified with a couple coaches just to make sure we had our ducks in a row. But red shirts count. I think fundamentally you're not going to see guys redshirt before the season just because there's no value in it anymore. It doesn't save a roster spot. It doesn't help with development. Like, you have to take up one of those roster spots now if a guy redshirts, and you might see some of it happen retroactively with a kid who maybe doesn't play at all. You know, you go a whole season, a guy doesn't play, you might be able to, petition to get that kid a redshirt after his freshman year or whenever it might be. And there's always the hardship waivers and whatnot. But that's less about roster management and more about getting a kid another year of eligibility. So that's kind of the high level, but there is some nuance to a couple things that I'll kick it over to you for. I know you were looking at some of the Division II and the Division III stuff. So take it away.
Sure. The Division II rule is new for this year. In your initial year in college, so just freshman, at the Division II level, you could play up to 30% of the season and still be able to maintain your red shirt and eligibility for the year. It's only a Division II rule. If you are not a freshman, then you would have to sit out the entire year to maintain your year of eligibility. The one thing with Division II and Division III is that you have 10 semesters to play 4 years. So technically, you have 5 years to play 4 is what that kind of breaks down to. So it's usually the 10 semester or 15 quarter rule that allows you to be able to play your 4 years in the span of those 5. Obviously, there's some medical hardship and stuff in there that you can probably petition the NCAA for if you have some season-ending injuries and things like that. But the general rule for the 98 to 99% of people is going to be that you have 5 years to play 4. But that new rule, like I said, for Division II allows you to play up to 30% of the games and then still maintain your red shirt as a freshman and maintain your eligibility. So I could probably see some programs doing that, right? Like, and kind of to your point about retroactively at the Division I level, like, maybe you have a handful of freshmen that play in, 7-8 games, or some pitchers who throw in 5 or 6, 3 or 4 games and have minimal innings and maybe get, banged up a little bit, or they're just not ready. That's an easy way to just kind of redshirt those guys. And the other thing to remember at the Division 2 and 3 levels, there's no roster limit. So, if you have some arms that you got to look at in competition against other teams, or some position guys that, maybe need to, they're a little bit further away, but now you have a better idea of what it looks like, that you get them 10 at bats and they're just overmatched. Now what you can kind of work on with those guys to get them good over the course of the next 4 years, because you can kind of take it and run with it there. The other good thing is that you can practice with the team. You're just not going to be able to play, obviously. So you're still eligible to do all the things. You're just not really eligible to play any games whatsoever. Division 3 is straightforward. There is no red shirt per se at the Division 3 level. Same thing that we talked about, just a couple moments ago, that you have 10 semesters or 15 quarters to play 4 years. So the one difference in Division 3, and this is getting very, very in the weeds, is that you can start and stop your clock at the Division 3 level by being full or part-time students. So it's a little bit different, but you essentially have 4 springs to be able to play. Not to say that they're like the red shirt, quote unquote, doesn't exist. But because you have 4 years to play, or 5 years to play 4, if guys have season-ending injuries, or they have a pretty significant injury in the fall where they're not going to be really ready or cleared until, late April the following year, essentially you can just take that semester off from a baseball standpoint, and you can still use that semester at a different point in time over the course of your 5 years. So, it's not to say it doesn't exist, but it's not necessarily going to be athletically driven. It's more going to be centered around injuries, things of that nature. The one caveat I will say is that I think it's, in our experience, it's more at the Division 3 level, where there are some academic programs out there at a vast number of Division 3 schools that are 5-year programs, where you have to be in school to graduate there for 5 years. In those scenarios, and these are, I shouldn't say there's a vast number, but there's enough out there that this is relevant. In those scenarios, you can, because the school has it set as a 5-year program, you can more or less kind of play when you want your 4 years in those 5, right? You could, maybe quote unquote redshirt your freshman year and play sophomore through your 5th year. You could play freshman through senior year and not play your 5th year. Maybe you play freshman, sophomore year and something happens and, you take junior year off, or you have to co-op and you have to go away. So you take it off anyways. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but that's more school specific and more prevalent at the Division 3 level than it is anywhere else. But all in all, there is no red shirt, quote unquote. And you have the 10 semesters, 15 quarters to play 4 years.
Well said. Yeah, I don't think I have much to add to that. I just I think red shirts in baseball have always been a little different than, it's a pretty typical thing to do in college football. Guys need like a full year on campus to get physically ready, and it's you bring guys in with the idea like, hey, you're gonna redshirt your freshman year. You're not gonna play. We're gonna develop you, and then you'll play your 4 years after that. In college baseball, especially with the new roster rules, you need to take advantage of all 34 of those spots. So this place for redshirts, it's typically going to be hardship driven, or maybe that retroactive redshirt of a kid that doesn't play that much, or doesn't play at all. Although they have toyed with the idea of a threshold for Division 1 from a pure playing time perspective, where you could grant it, but I couldn't find anything specific about it in the legislation, so I'm not going to throw any fake news out there about that. But yeah, it's good to know. It's good to understand how rosters work. So wanted to take a few minutes and cover it. Anything else you want to add, Coach?
No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Hopefully that was informative, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.